Peace and love. You are now tuned into a Dope Public Health Podcast. I'm your host, Demonte. And as always, this is a safe space where we lead with grace and we're always open to learning. And today I'm joined by two really dope guests, Shareela Allen, LCSW, and Natasha Thomas, LMFT of Change Therapeutic Services. How are you both?
Good
Good.
morning. We are doing well.
Yeah, and
That
excited
is
to be here.
I'm so happy to have you. And as we were talking about in pre-production, I think of all places, being a parent and a dad, about what TikTok meant and how I've been learning to use it effectively. And that's kind of how I stumbled upon Change Therapeutic Services. And it was like I would come across a video. It was like one of you or both of you, and there's always like a small message and a small nugget. And like working in the field of mental health for so long, I just find it comforting that I'm like, wait, I can repost this stuff. And like, you never know, people that might be going through may be able to get a hold of this in this app because they're a little bit scared to maybe explore that route of therapy. So we'll start there. How did TikTok become an avenue that was beneficial to you? And then we'll dive into the creation of Change Therapeutic Services.
Okay, so I will actually, this was really more of my partner's lane. She
Okay.
started exploring, just trying to figure out, how can we get the word out there? Because when we're meeting with clients, I think it's fantastic, right? But sometimes you find that people need something, just a little something to kind of get them through the week. Maybe it might be something they're experiencing. Maybe it might be something that a friend of theirs or family member is experiencing. So what we found is this is an avenue just to give people a little bit of something just to kind of get through the week until they're able to meet with us for a next session.
Wow. That's powerful.
Heck yeah. And TikTok is popping. I mean, I think that you have to go where there's a need. And we wanted people to be able to see that there are Black therapists out there. We wanted people to be able to see that it is okay to go to therapy. We wanted messages to be, sent out. And what's cool about it is that there's a lot of inspiration of our topics that comes from just day-to-day conversations and interactions with our clients.
Okay.
And then what kind of kept that is we got a lot of feedback. Like, we didn't even know how many of our clients were following us. I have clients that are like, I share your TikTok with my other fellows teachers. I share your TikTok with my students. So we were like, wait, y'all actually are following? Like, they like it, and they're like, no, it's really good to have it in between sessions. So we were like, okay, so there's something to this. And then we just started to kind of see like our following growing, people commenting, reposting, and we were like, okay, God, we see you.
That is amazing. And then in doing my research and, after I discovered just stumbled upon all the amazing work that you're doing, I saw that, Change Therapeutic Services started in 2020. So kind of, if you can walk us a little bit, just like, how did this come to be? Sometimes there's always like, oh, well, I'm going to go into business for myself and just do my own thing. What led to, let's collaborate and do this thing together?
So, well, I think that this was established. I think this was God's plan well before we decided to open our private practice. Shareela and I have been friends since 1991.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
So our friendship started there. When we got to the place where it was time to open up our private practice, Shareela was already licensed and I had to wait to become licensed. And we had a really good conversation. And I asked Shareela, I said, well, can we do this together? And we were both kind of reading each other's minds, like, heck yeah, let's do this together. Let's do this together. And we sat down one day. I remember we were on my couch. We were sitting down like, what is our name going to be? What are we gonna do? We just started thinking all of these things because Shareela and I, we're both forward thinkers. So we were just thinking like ahead, like, okay, what are we going to do? Where's our location going to be? What can we do? And we just started brainstorming. And in that moment, Change Therapeutic Services, like it was birthed in that moment.
I would agree. Yeah. And mind you, this is during the pandemic. So we literally had that conversation, and after that we took off running. Okay, so me and Tasha have our different roles in the business. So I'm kind of like the planner. So I,
Okay.
type up all these things we need to do. And from there we just choo choo. We started knocking
Okay.
off all the things. This was literally birthed during the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Wow.
literally everything from contracting to getting credentialed, like everything just worked out. And the blessing is that we did need that time to get this established. So we're both working full time still, trying to
Yeah.
get this going while we're working. So we're working and then trying to get this done and trying to send this off. It's you can smile about it after, but during it
Mm-hmm.
was a little stressful because you're trying to get all this stuff done. But literally we talked about it and that was it. And from there we formed Change.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. And another thing that drew me, one of my favorite quotes. So, click on the bio, then I click, go to the website and I see the quote. I was like, oh, if nothing changes, nothing changes. Like I've been saying that for like I think I originally came across that maybe in my 20s, and it's been something that's stuck with me. What made you or moved you both to add that to exactly what you're doing? I mean, it's poetic. I'm looking at your bios and what you do, and it perfectly makes sense. But how did you both come to like, yep, this is it?
We wanted a like a signature statement. We wanted something that would resonate with people. And I think sometimes people think, even if it is a small amount of change, they don't give yourself credit for that. But that small change can create other
Mm-hmm.
changes in your life. So I think we
Mm-hmm.
wanted something that would resonate with people. We wanted something that people can understand. I mean, that's a simple concept. If nothing changes, then nothing's going to change. So let's see what we can change. We can work together
Right.
to do that.
Absolutely. And to add to that, I think the misconception is that we always want people to change. But the reality of it is they don't have to change. If you want change, you have to change.
Gotcha.
That's something that I'm always talking to people about in session because they're like, I want this person to change. I want this. And it's like, no, 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 they don't
Mhm,
have to.
mhm,
You do. Like
mhm,
people are their own people. They're going to do whatever they
Yeah.
want. And oftentimes we want people to do things that they clearly are showing us that they don't. So if you don't like the situation, if you don't like the treatment, if you don't like any of these things, then you actually have to change, not them. Because sometimes people are comfortable in exactly what they're doing.
Yeah. There's a lot to be said with that. And speaking of which, can you both talk to me about how maybe, and now you've been doing this since then, and it's 2023. Um, what have you seen as far as the landscape of mental health? Do you see that looking differently than maybe when you first got into this field?
Well, I'll say this. I think that we have the language for mental health now. I think like in the days of our parents, most people just stayed away from Uncle Johnny because he might be a little off or he might, say something that might be out of
Mm-hmm.
character. So I think now, I think what has changed is just language. We have the language for some of these things. I'm thankful for social media at times because I think that it sheds light on mental health. But the flip side to that sometimes is I think that people they make a joke of mental health. So you hear comments about like Kanye going off on a rant or
Mm-hmm.
some whatever's going on with Jada. You hear these conversations, and I think that for some people, something that I hear often is, "Oh, I'm 5150." I hear that a lot, right? Making joke or light of a situation
Uh,
that's actually fair. It's really serious if someone is 5150. Um, but I think that the landscape has changed now because we definitely have the language to communicate, hey, this is what's actually going on with this person. And now that we know what's going on with this person, now we can, put them or link them to some resources that are going to be able to help them.
Yeah.
makes
To,
sense.
to add to that, I would say I think another change that's been really cool is I think I'm seeing a lot more older people come to therapy, which
Okay.
I love. So I have quite a few clients who are in their 70s, Black. So it's cool to see that a shift I'm seeing is that you have older people coming, and you have to, the Gen Z, I mean, let's just be very clear. These people
Mm-hmm.
are, they're breaking generational curses. They are coming to therapy. You are seeing a lot of people of color, especially in the Hispanic community, breaking generational curses, changing traditions, saying, I don't want to do this. I don't want the expectations of my parents on me,
Okay.
you know. And what you'll find is that there's a lot of, even though there might be separate cultures, there's a lot of similarities in culture, whether it's Hispanic, whether it's African, whether it's Indian,
Absolutely.
these expectations. Asian, what you see is that there's all of this cultural expectation, right? And a lot of them are not going for it, which has been really cool to see when you're working with a lot of, I think more women, I'll be honest, but you're seeing a lot of stuff, and you're seeing them push back on these traditions and these expectations, and that's always a pleasure to work with and to see.
Wow. And then
Mhm.
are there any other particular, like, the stigma for so long was, Black people don't go to therapy. I think we're moving towards, I think we've more than approached that and faced that head on. I think that that's been disproved for quite some time now. But are there any other particular stigmas that, even with the success of your organization, and I'm sure you have other colleagues, if you have to refer out sometimes, that you still see and face?
Hmm. I think there's still stigma
Mhm.
attached to medication. I think that that's still very
Mm,
hard. I definitely still see that. I hear it, I see it, and I think even with some of my clients, um, I will hear a number of their parents still say, don't take that medication. Why do you need that?" So a lot of them still struggle. I have some clients that really struggle with consistently taking their medication. And
mm-hmm.
then also, I think there's still like this stigma. As much as I feel like us as Black people are getting better with people coming to therapy, I think there are still a number of people who struggle with that. I still have clients who, I had a client that was in crisis, and and I've had this happen before, where clients are in crisis, and when they reach out to families like, don't talk to them, they're going to 5150 you, don't open
Oh,
your mouth.
wow.
And it's kind of like, no, but if they're in crisis, that's what we need to do. So I think there still is some stigma attached to that. I think we've moved away from it, but I still think we have generations. When we
Okay.
think of sometimes like our parents, they're still a little, even as a therapist,
Mhm.
my dad will be like, that's cool, that's what you do, but I'm not going to therapy. Even
Mm-hmm.
my dad still, so I still think there's those generations that still think like that, and they're still projecting. I think they still project.
Gotcha.
I think that still impacts their children and other people that, are utilizing services, because I think people do care about what people think about them.
Yeah,
Mm.
I think to add to that, I think people still figuring out if this is a safe space because of probably some past
Wow.
experiences,
Mhm.
and them kind of I think for us, kind of changing that narrative so that people understand that this is a safe space for you to be able to bring whatever your concerns or your issues are for that session. But I do still think that there is that stigma that um, that this isn't a safe space. That if you tell us that we are going to 5150 you, or that sometimes I feel there's because of maybe a previous situation, they feel that there's this idea of judgment that isn't present
Gotcha.
Mhm.
here. Um, and I think just working with, I say this often, a therapist, I say, is like a good pair of shoes. To have a good therapist means that you're going to have to wear that shoe, and it's going to have to just kind of stand the test of time. You're going to have to go places with this shoe,
Yeah,
right? Like
that's
your
a
with
fact.
your hair, right? It has to fit good. For me, it has to look good. And it has to be able to get me to where I'm going. And that's what that relationship is like.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about, you know, therapists having a therapist? I think so many times, one of the things what stigmas that I still believe is somewhat existing is like, sometimes people think therapists just are this almighty container that just can process things like chat GPT and give you a solution. But like, I mean, so like, how do you kind of balance that, in your lives?
I think that's also a stigma, right? That therapists, like, we don't have problems, we don't have issues, that we're not triggered. Um, and I think that that's number one, that's false. But I think for us to be able to do the work that we do, we have to be able to make sure that our mental health is intact, right? We have to be able to make sure that, hey, some of the things that if a client tells you something and you start feeling something and now that impacts that therapeutic relationship, no, that's something you have to
Mm-hmm.
go work out with your therapist. So that's not present. It's not coming up in session because session is about that person. So I think it's important for us to be able to manage our own stuff. Of course, we have a multitude of tools. We have the toolbox. It runs the gamut, right? We have it all in here, but we're also
Mm-hmm.
human. And at times, because of our humanity, you don't want to do any of that stuff. Sometimes we have a bad day
That's a
too.
reality.
And we should be able to have that. Like, we should be able to have it. I think there's this idea that we don't have bad days, or we might not be depressed, or we might not have anxiety. All of that is false. We are
Mm-hmm.
also human beings who have some of the same
Mm-hmm.
struggles. We just have a wealth of knowledge in this toolbox of ours, but sometimes we just don't have the capacity. And that's okay. But I think
Yeah.
also doing that extra work, the same thing that we preach, we have to check in with someone to see if we can work out some of those things so that we can show up as our best selves.
I would agree. And we actually did a post of Can Therapists Have Therapists because we wanted people to understand it's
Mhm.
true. Um,
Nice. Okay.
and so I can honestly say I do have a therapist as needed. I go see her, and I feel like that's important to have. And actually, mostly all of my colleagues do. All of us, people have to remember when you're in the helping business, it's normally because you've had your own stuff. Let's be clear. That's very common.
Mm-hmm.
And so just like everybody else, um, we have our own stuff. And it's very true that your clients think that I've had clients say, you just have it together. And I'm like, well, what makes you think that? Please do tell. Because we're here for 50 minutes and we're talking about you most of the time, but there's this idea because I'm always happy or because it's this.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, no. And I've shared with them, no, I've worked through some stuff. I don't go into detail, but I do share with them that, no, I've gone through my own stuff. I've also shared most therapists have therapists. I've also shared that a lot of most programs do require you to also see a therapist as well. So they're kind of like, oh, really? And I'm like, yeah. And I've also shared with them, I've had a therapist that has not always been Black. So I've shared a number of things because I think there's this idea you always got to be Black. Not necessarily. I feel like there are some therapists that have been there. They can take you so far on a journey. And
Mm-hmm.
for me, when I went there, color didn't matter. I needed her to call me out on some stuff. And that didn't matter because I wasn't going for specific things other than certain. I had specific things, but it didn't necessarily have to do with race. Like that wasn't a
Gotcha.
must. So I also share with people too that are kind of like a little resistant. If you just want a Black therapist, we are here. But also don't be afraid to explore outside of that because you'll be surprised with sometimes who you get and how that perfect person is perfect for you for that specific reason.
Mhm.
Yeah. That's really key because as somebody who, yeah, I definitely champion therapy and I openly say that I have a therapist. And yeah, like sometimes you're not going to find that match. You won't look the same, but the work that gets done can be
Mm-hmm.
just as impactful. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So then if you could talk a little bit about like, what are some of in addition to, some of those things maybe in your toolbox that you can share about like how you maintain that personal self-care in addition to being therapist, which is, that's a heavy task that it's a lot that goes into that. You're also business owners, which a lot goes into that. So that's a nice balance. So how do you do, what's some of those things in your self-care toolbox that you're like, okay, these are some things that it's my go-to because I know it's going to help me, get from point A to point B.
Okay, I'm 100% transparency, right? I said I'm going to come on here and I'm going to tell the truth today.
I
Um,
heard that.
I think what's most important for me in my toolbox is this woman that's sitting right here. Because
Oh, that's awesome.
I have that go spirit. I have that goal. Like, it just goes and it does not want to stop. Um,
Okay.
but I
Okay.
think I think having people in your corner that says, "Hey, sit down, stop,
Yes.
change your
Yes.
schedule, do these things." Like, does that have to be done today? I think that
Mm.
that is invaluable. It's been such a blessing to me. I think the people who you surround yourself with, in
Okay.
addition to your toolbox, but someone that can see you outside of yourself. Because once you're in
Yeah.
that zone, for me, I'm
Mhm.
hyper focused. I'm in the zone. I'm in my groove. And for me, this is one of my favorite things to do in life. So it's hard to kind
Gotcha.
of turn that off because I
Just
Mhm.
love
turn
it
it
so
off.
much. Yeah, because I love
Yeah.
it so much. And I'm just like, oh, yeah, I could do another thing. But I think that person that says, hey, what are you doing? And they are able to tell you the truth. And not only are they
Mm-hmm.
able to tell you the truth, but you can receive their truth because
Yeah.
you know them, you vibe with them. I think that's invaluable.
Gotcha.
I would agree. And I actually wrote down some stuff while she was talking. So I would agree. I
Okay.
think we balance each other. She will, I don't think I've done something great with my schedule. Like I've knocked down my hours and she's like, no, you didn't. I don't see it. So she will hold me because sometimes you think you've done something and you really haven't.
Yeah. Yep.
She's like, so what about every other Friday? So we do hold each other accountable.
That's
And
awesome.
then God, I'm going to tell you, we pray every time we meet, we do devotions, we fast. God is in the center of everything that we do.
Mhm.
Mm.
Um, and so we ask him to lead us, to guide us, and to order our steps. That is like monumental for us. And that's why truly we're blessed because God formed us. And so we are a vessel. And so I think having him be a part of everything that we do, I think also helps us to balance things. We don't have to
Gotcha.
rush. We're not looking for things. We have not, we've seen people when we first started. Oh my gosh, we had clients that weren't paying us fully because they couldn't. We just did a number of things that we were blessed to do, but God
Mhm.
has blessed us in return for those
Mm-hmm.
things. And so I think that's part of the balance. Again, as she said, our family, you know, I feel for people who, I see people post like not having good support and people to come out and show up. No, me and this young lady have events. All of our family comes to every event,
Wow.
every. And
That is
there was a
amazing.
yeah, and there was a year we did like 2 events a month. They were at every event.
Mhm.
Wow.
They show up. How can we help you? They buy our stuff. They're helping set up, drop off. They don't care. They repost our stuff, like it, share it.
Mm-hmm.
We are loved on. And that matters. And then lastly, we do stuff together. We do resets. So we as partners go
Okay.
somewhere every 3 months. We also go away to celebrate our anniversary. So we do stuff to keep us aligned as partners, and to take a break. And so that's something that we also implemented because as therapists who are also the business owners, it can be a lot. And so our reset retreat is like our time to kind of just reset, relax. We talk a little business, and then after that, we done. We here to play. We here to have fun.
Nice. Yeah.
So I think those things help too.
And like, knowing each other since 1992, 1991 is that in and of itself is monumental, which, before 2020, like family is family kind of thing, you know. So how do you speak to, oh, you can't go into business with people that you know or you've known for so long? So because I think with your spirits and what you're doing and what you're saying and how you're moving, I just feel like you are the perfect two people to be able to speak to that in a different light.
Ooh.
You know, I think this is a Shareela and I've actually had this conversation. Like, what do we say? And I think the best thing that we can do is actually just speak our truth. This is not. I think that this is something that is going to test your friendship. It's going to
Mm,
test not only your friendship, but I think it's going to test who you are as a person. Working so closely with something reflects a mirror of yourself. It
Oh,
just
gotcha.
come on.
does. It does. So you start figuring out like, okay, wait a minute, that's me. Like that situation is me. And you have to be able to tell yourself the truth about whatever it is that's coming up in this relationship because it is a relationship. Shareela's
Hmm.
sister had mentioned that we're married and we are.
Mm-hmm.
We are in business and this business will stand the test of time. I know that it will. So our relationship has to reflect some of the foundational relationships that happen, outside of the business. There has to be trust. There has to be honesty. There has to be transparency. They have to have all of those ingredients that make up this relationship. Outside of that, the
Okay.
same applies to business. You have to be able to tell, I think, before you tell the other person the truth, you got to tell yourself the truth first. And I think
Mm-hmm.
as you're able to do that, you'll notice that this business relationship doesn't seem as complicated anymore. It seems
Wow.
it seems to flow because you're being
Mm-hmm.
honest with yourself. And as you're honest with yourself, then you can be honest with your business partner and say, hey, what do you think about this direction? What do you think about this? What about revamping that? What about this? And what about whatever you bring to the table that can be received because you're both actually telling yourself the truth and working on
Yeah.
your truth.
I would agree. And to add to that, I will say this, you do hear this often. You can't go into business. And actually, it was kind of sad because there is this podcaster. It was B. Simone and I think her best friend Megan. They are no longer doing their podcast together. And it
Mm.
made me sad because they were best friends and you could see it dwindled away. I will say, to as she said, it is a marriage. And I think when we first started, there were things we had to work out. There were some differences. We had to learn our strengths, who was strong in this area, who, okay, doesn't like this. We had to learn some things. Something that I can say I had to learn is I had this idea of what it was supposed to look like, and I had to really alley oop that in the trash. Because
Gotcha.
what happens is you're like, okay, it needs to look like this, and we have to do this.
Yep.
And I had to stop doing some of that. We're not going to sit here and say it was always perfect. It was not. There were things, there were discussions and things that we had to have, some tough conversations, but we loved each other enough to have those conversations,
Mm-hmm.
to be honest. We had to cry some things out. And we also said we would end this business before it took because of our friendship, because of our love for each other. Like, we
Wow.
will end this business.
Yeah.
It will never cost us because this is
Mm-hmm.
like my sister. This is my best friend. And
Yeah.
I think that and those little hurdles have made us stronger. It's just made
Wow.
us stronger. You have
Mm-hmm.
to have a commitment. There is no divorce here. Like, there really isn't. But there has to be understanding. And like she said, you have to be able to look at yourself. There were some things Tasha told me, and I was like, me? Honestly? But I was like, you
Okay.
gotta remember whose child you are. Like, you got some of that from your daddy. So
Okay.
but you have to be able to see yourself, but you also have to love the other person enough to want to see yourself too, for the betterment of that. And I think when people can do that, you absolutely can. This can work. It truly can.
Yeah. So then, my last question before we get into a little bit of fun, what would you say to that person who is on the cusp of, I think it's time to make that leap? You both made the leap in 2020, just creating this, all the amazing work you're doing with Change Therapeutic Services. So, what would you say to that person about taking that leap to greater things?
Ultimately, I would say do it even if you're afraid, but have your ducks
Mm.
in a, but have your ducks in a row before you do it. Right. So when we started, Shareela and I were both still working full time,
Mm-hmm.
full time. And of course we have our personal lives. So all of that was kind of running in tandem with us opening up the business. Um,
Yeah.
but I think for us, something that has just, it's been our saving grace is that we have each other, right? So if
Mm.
there's some things that I need to do and, I'm crunched for a deadline, I can say, hey, Shareela, can you shoot this email? Can you do this? And vice versa. There are
Gotcha.
tasks that actually speak to our strengths that work for us in business. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I feel bad for those who are in business by themselves because I'm like, oh man, you got to do all that by yourself. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a way to do it, right? You just have to
Mm-hmm.
line your ducks up in a row. And
Mm-hmm.
Shareela and I are infamous for like lists. So once you're done, you mark that off. You're on to the next one.
Okay.
We're old
Mm-hmm.
school in that way.
Yeah.
Computers are great. Technology is fantastic, but give me a pen and a paper any day. So when you get these
Okay.
tasks done, you mark those things off and you're just on to the next. I think my personality is always slow and steady. You'll get there. You will get there. Wherever it is that you're trying to go, you'll get there. Just slow and steady. Pace yourself.
Yeah.
Pace yourself and you'll get to your destination. So do it and do it scared.
Okay.
would agree. I would agree. And as she said, have a list. There's a number of things that when you're jumping into this business that you have to have completed. You know, your business license, credentialing, there's a
Mhm.
number of things, your office, like there's all of these things. So you want to make sure that you're being very smart about how you go about things, because if not, it can be very costly. Also, speak to people in the industry. I've
Mhm.
you know, me and Tasha have talked to a number of people, and we're happy to say that after some of the people have talked to us, they jumped because they were totally misguided. We've talked to
Mhm.
people and they were afraid, and we're like, that's not even an issue. And why don't you just get a credentialer? They're like, wait,
Wow.
somebody can do the insurances? I'm like,
Mhm.
yes. Like, who told you you had to? So I
Yeah.
think a number of people are also scared because they haven't been given accurate information. You know, when you're looking for your space, like sublease, don't just go get a space, like sublease, because credentialing takes some time. So I would say talk to some reputable people that are in the industry to kind of help you, because me and Tasha had so many people help us, you know, so many, but we spoke to, this is where I'm overkill in this area. I'm gonna speak to 72,000 people
Okay.
to get information. I'm gonna speak to them. How'd you do this? What's the do's and the don'ts? Like, we talked to so many
Mhm.
people, and that's where I think a lot of our success came from too. You know, and read this book, don't do this, sublease, do this. And let me tell you, it all helped. All of it helped. So talking to people and asking questions, and don't just talk to one person, talk to a number of people, because that will
Mm.
also be helpful to you in this industry.
Wow, that definite due diligence there. And then as we begin to wrap things up, always ask what's that one song or genre that just, you know what, when you need that pick me up, it's this particular song. And I know like it's in heavy rotation. I can always play this song and it's gonna help me uplift and get me where I need to be. So whichever one of you want to go first, let me know what that song is for you.
Oh,
Do you
I
want the?
actually have a couple.
I was gonna say,
Okay.
do you want the clean?
Rapid fire.
You want the clean version or?
Oh no, this is not a PG show.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, God. Huh. For me, okay, so definitely God's Got a Blessing with your name on it. So I think it's Norman Hutchins. Definitely that's in heavy rotation.
Okay.
Uh, Also, Ty Tribbett's Only One Night Though. Love that one.
Okay.
Also, uh, All I Do Is Win, 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 no matter what. Gotta hear that.
Okay.
And then there's another song. It's by the dude that's, what is that show called? Black as F. It's Win, 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 Win. F
Yes,
everything
I know
else.
exactly what you're talking about.
That
Yes.
song. Yeah. There's others, but I definitely like those ones. They definitely get me hyped.
Two songs for me.
Yeah.
Two songs
I
for
think
me.
that's J Rock. That's J Rock.
Yes, there you go.
Yeah.
It
Yeah, yeah,
is.
yeah, yeah. Two songs for me. So I've been listening to this. I've shared this with Shareela. It's Enlarge My Territory. That
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
song. So I've been singing that. And the next one is Bitch Better Have My Money. Rihanna.
For real, for real. I heard that. That is
Yeah,
amazing. And
yeah.
I really appreciate both of you, the work that you do, and just being able to
Thank
share
you.
a dose of that, on social media because you're helping more than your clients. So I just wanted to uplift that. If people want to get in touch with you though, so where would they be able to find Change Therapeutic Services?
So they can look on our website, www.changetherapeuticservices.com. Our Instagram is change. What is our underscore for change? Our tag
Oh,
for change. I
I'm gonna
should.
look for that. Oh, you can give them our number while
Yeah,
I
so
look that
actually,
up.
Okay.
when you're looking on our website, we have a contact area where you're able to send us a message. If you want to find a therapist, you can send us a message there. We are on Instagram, we are on Facebook. Actually, when you just type in Change Therapeutic Services, you'll actually see this symbol right here. Um, and
Nice.
when you do, you're able to get in contact with us through all social media platforms. We're on everything.
And I love that, like, because just navigating to your site right now, you go to contact us, there's where you can enter your name, but then there's literally a link here for, LinkedIn, X, formerly known as Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.
Right?
So
Everything's there.
that is so amazing. Again, thank you both so much for joining, and thank you all for listening. This has been another great episode of Adult Public Health Podcast with love, respect, and advocacy. Peace. Boom. And the recording.